Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alexandra Reynolds. This is my student ID. If you can't read it, it's 1567048. I'm going to jump right in because I think I'm going to go over the time a little bit. So I chose Ted Bundy as my video assignment. I'm sure this is not the only one you are going to get, but hopefully you're able to take away a little bit of information that's different from the rest. He's considered America's most prolific killer. He has, the reason I did choose him is because he has the most consistent and systematic way of evading law enforcement and manipulating young women that I thought just showed a certain consistency and relevance to a way you can prevent it. A lot of the cases came the same. A lot of the girls were alone. A lot of the girls he was helping. A lot of the girls were drinking at a bar. There is a lot of things that I personally feel can be prevented, and I'll go into that later on. To start, Ted Bundy was 42 when he died. He was sentenced to death by electrocution in 1978. His span of crimes was just under 4 years, from 1974 to 1978. He was born in Burlington, Vermont in 1946. In total, he confessed to 30 murders in the state of Florida, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. Considered a charismatic killer, all-American boy, and law school student. From the outside, you would not suspect that he is capable of these violent, awful, heinous crimes and the things that were done to these women. He had previous encounters with law enforcement, which I found was very interesting. It was burglarization. Now, this is where I feel like he got a lot of his experience because he broke into almost all of the girls' houses that I'm going to give you examples of. Sorority houses, apartments, basement rooms, laundry rooms, stuff like that, which is another reason I feel could have been prevented by locking doors, keeping contacts, keeping, a phone near you at all times so you can call 911 if someone does break in. He frequented bars and often tried to come off as handicapped or homeless. Another couple examples I'm going to show you, he was either wearing, a cast or crutches, asking people for help. The first notable victim was Karen Sparks in 1974. She was attacked in her sleep by a man who beat her with a metal rod. She was actually one of the few that survived, but she had permanent brain damage for the rest of her life. Linda Healy in 1974 is another student at the University of Washington. Ted Bundy found her spare key the girls kept in the mailbox. She had multiple bloodstains around the house, around her room, and then on her clothes as well. Her body wasn't found until 14 months later, and it was only her skull and her jaw that was found on Taylor Mountain. The next is a 19-year-old Donna Mason in 1974, a student from the College of South Seattle. Her body was never found, but Ted Bundy did confess to burning her skull in his girlfriend Elizabeth's fireplace. Janice Ott and Denise Naslin, kidnapped from Lake Sammamish. This is actually one of the most notable because this is where Ted Bundy's name got put on the radar. A lot of witnesses claimed a man with an arm sling was asking for help rigging his sailboat onto a car. It did not work for a few girls, but unfortunately for these two it did. Thankfully, his name was put in, his car was put in, and a light sketch of his face was sent out to the media. This ultimately led as the catalyst to getting him in bars and away from the public. Melissa Ann Smith was kidnapped, raped, and murdered in between walking home from a friend's house to a slumber party. Julie Cunningham, kidnapped from a local bar. He pretended to ask for help in crutches. Margaret Bowman, Lisa Levy, Karen Chandler, and Kathy Kleiner. This is the incident of the sorority house killing. He came in and killed the first two girls, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy. He came back a few hours later to attack the other two girls, Kathy Kleiner and Karen Chandler. He ended up beating one of them so bad a police officer thought she was actually just shot in the face. The only reason that their names aren't on the victim list as being murdered, thankfully, is because someone pulled into the driveway, one of their roommates, and the light flashed, she saw him, and she ended up identifying him in a court of law. Cheryl Thomas, 21 years old, and the last victim, Kimberly Leach, 12 years old. Trying to drive away from exactly all the girls because there is not enough time to even go through how all these girls died. A lot of them has a consistent way. They were alone, they were vulnerable, they were trusting or helping. A lot of these things, unfortunately, as a young woman, as a beautiful young woman, all of these women were outstandingly beautiful and talented and smart, and it's hard to believe that they were just ultimately just not as quick as him. I think he was a very charismatic manipulator, and he had a very trusting, charming, good-looking face, apparently. So I think a lot of that had to do with it. But at the end of the day, a lot of the ways this could have been prevented was locking your doors, not walking home alone, not letting men into your house that you barely know. And, you know, this is all very basic stuff, but this ultimately led to almost 30 confessed killings. Lastly, to say, he did get electrocuted on the chair. He was sentenced to death 3 times. This just shows the intensity of the ugliness and violence in these crimes, and it truly is a menace to society. Lastly, I want to go over some of the documentaries that are, you know, kind of in essence either showing him who he is or what he does, or just showing a movie of how he does things. A lot of these I wanted to mention also was the fact of the textbook American Homicide goes into reality versus entertainment a lot, and I thought that would be a good twist to add into the video assignment. Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile is just one of them. It definitely relates to some of the facts, and then in a lot of ways it does not. There's other documentaries and movies and dramatizations. The Deliberate Stranger in 1986 by Richard Larson, Ted Bundy, The Mind of a Serial Killer in 2000, The Hunt for Ted Bundy in 2015, and Conversations with a Killer in 2009 by Joe Berlinger. Thank you for watching my video assignment. I know I went a little over time. There was just a lot of information to throw at you. I hope you were able to take away some key aspects of everything. And lastly, to just put it out there, lock your doors. Thank you. Bye.